Well, howdy, friends. And here we are, Eddie Stone, and I'm Winder Lyons with another fireside chat. And this one is, the old fireside chat thing's appropriate because it's cold outside.
It is. It is. Yeah. I looked out the window this morning and that holiday tune, "Baby, It's Cold Outside."
It was,
Baby, it's cold outside.
it was written for that moment. Okay.
Yes.
So today we have on our agenda to discuss the last two products in our line that we haven't talked through yet, and that is the Super Green Juice and the Organic Super Protein. And when I mentioned chatting about those, you said that they're really supposed to be done, or they're best done together. So why don't we use that as a starting point? Why would you want to do them both at the same time and take it from there?
Well, so it's about trying to, there's a lot of ways to approach this, right? For me, it's about trying to provide a super meal for your body, right? And people are going to use this for different means. I mean, for some people, they're just trying to provide a healthy meal, a meal replacement of sorts, and maybe because they're trying to cut some calories. That the traditional 3 meals a day for most people what winds up being animal protein with each of those meals. And frankly, for most people, a lot of ultra-processed foods are in those meals. That's a recipe for gaining weight every decade of your life, anywhere from 8 to sort of 12 pounds. And so, that type of approach is okay when you're an adolescent or you're a teenager or even in your early 20s, because you metabolize everything that's near you. You're burning a lot of energy. And in general, your lifestyle's active, right? Then all of a sudden, one day in your 30s, you can drive past a restaurant with a buffet and gain weight, right? I mean, things just sort of change. Your chemistry changes. And unfortunately, we get so busy, we tend to eat worse. We tend to take less time with a meal. You're so busy with kids or jobs or whatever happens to be. Most people just cannot afford to be as thoughtful about meal prep. And I think that's one of the reasons why juicers on the surface are so appealing for people, because it's like, okay, it's like cramming for an exam. Okay, I'm going to cram for an exam. I'm going to juice up a bunch of vegetables and drink it. The trouble is, for most people, after a couple of weeks of the chop and prep, the going and the purchasing and the cleanup, the juicer gets put in the back of the kitchen cabinet, much like the exercise equipment they bought becomes a hanger for clothing in their bedroom. Right. So it's on the surface, it's a good idea, but in practice, it's not that great. And so, I mean, while I'm a fan of juicing, I understand it. I don't own a juicer. I don't, because of I have a busy lifestyle like other people, and I'm just not going to be able to invest the amount of time in the chop, prep, cleanup, purchasing, all those things that we just described. And so Super Green Juice, as well as Organic Super Protein, can provide a person a convenient, call it a fast meal, that's a high density, super nutritious meal. And so, unlike that deal with the devil you make when you get somebody to pass through a drive-through window for you a meal in a styrofoam container, which is, I caught the deal with the devil because you're under no illusions, right? It's just satisfying in the moment, or it's quieting for the kids in the back, whatever it happens to be. No one's driving away going, man, I just really did some great stuff for my body today. That's not what's happening. It's like, hey, I'm going to use this to survive the day. So I get it. But the reality is that you could take really less time. I mean, this right here, it's got a scooper inside, right? To make it that much more simple. A glass of water and a spoon, you can pour it in there, mix it in about 30 seconds and drink it, and you're good to go. And maybe you don't want it with water. Maybe you're worried about the flavor, although I think if you'll just let the flavor be, you'll enjoy it. But you could put your juice with it, right? I don't want you to put too much juice with it because I don't want you to cover the flavor. The flavor is so good, and I think as your body gets used to it, you'll actually have a greater interest in fresh fruits and vegetables. And so just think about this, right? This unassuming little canister here is 44 different superfoods in a scoop, right? So even if you have the education on what to buy and what to put together and what to mix, most people don't have access, right? Most people aren't in an environment where they can go pick these things at the peak of nutritional maturity, process them with no heat so that all of those native enzymes and delicate phytonutrients survive. And so as much as the story about this product is about superfoods and the nutrient density and all those other things, remember, we're talking about greens that not only have chlorophyll and other things that aid your body in detox, they've also got trace minerals, right? So we're talking about a broad list of benefits here. In here are adaptogenic herbs, right? Which helps deal with stress and helps to manage and release energy. The greens help to alkalize, right? So that's going to improve metabolism. Everything's organic, 100%, right? So we know it doesn't have the fungicides, pesticides, herbicides that are there in the regular foods that people eat. I mean, I just reading an article on, for example, fluoride, which is something that I know for some people is sort of a controversial subject. I mean, one of the things about fluoride is just the amount we're getting, right? Because for conventional farmers, most of them are using fertilizers that are fluoride based, right? So you're not gonna have to deal with any of these things now. The medicinal mushrooms, which is a heavy dose of them in there, you got all those beta glucans and other things you find in there to strengthen your immune system, the microbials, the probiotics and prebiotics that you find in each serving, along with the inulin, which is going to help to feed those inside the body so your microbiome is taken care of, and the super fruits, as well as the greens and the antioxidant qualities. I mean, there's just such a list here of how it helps the heart, and it's just a way to maximize your nutrition conveniently. And if you don't use it because you're really into the nutrition, at least use it because it's super convenient. And guess what? You put it with the protein, which the protein per serving is, I don't know if you can see that, 18 grams plant-based proteins, right? There's no, this is a our entire line is a vegetarian-based line. Because we've included with the pea protein a fermented rice protein, you're never going to meet a vegetarian protein that digests this well. All that burping and sort of chalkiness that people think of when they think of something like this, it's gone. And unlike a whey protein, which are so common, in part because whey is a byproduct of the production of Greek yogurt. I mean, there's so much whey protein or whey in this country, they can't even get rid of this stuff, right? You almost can have somebody pay you to pick it up and produce a supplement in a canister from it. The problem is it's incredibly acidic. And so using protein, we've got an excellent article in the blog for people looking for some details and some reference points, but it will actually cause acidity and digestive issues for most people. So you're talking about a really easy to digest. If you, I think the two taste good together, but guess what? You could put a scoop of peanut butter in there, almond milk. My wife and daughter are big fans of using chocolate almond milk as a part of their mix, right? And so there's any number of ways to combine these for benefit, but what we're trying to do is to deliver to you a convenient to use, great tasting, highly nutritious program that you can treat yourself with, treat your body with. Don't grab a cereal bar in the morning. You make one of these shakes. If you're like, I don't have anything, I don't only have the time to grab a cereal bar in the morning. Don't do it. Take 3 minutes and make yourself one of these shakes and give your body some love. I mean, that's what this is about.
What is for people, for folks who've never tasted it, how would you describe the flavor of the protein powder?
It has a mild apple raspberry flavor. We don't use stevia. I'm not a fan at all. So it doesn't have that, for anybody that's had a shake or a drink made with stevia, at least for me, there tends to be a little bit of an acrid back end taste. The way mouthfeel works is stevia is one of those things that's sort of last to leave your palate. It does mean that provides on the front end a little bit of sweetness, but for a lot of people, it just sort of like, doesn't taste so good. So we sweeten it with, we don't add sugar, just the combination of native fruits in there, including Lohan, create a sweetness, a natural sweetness. So I'm not telling you it's like a milkshake. I don't want to set you up for failure in that regard, but it also doesn't have about 13% saturated dairy fat either. So it's not a milkshake, but it's got enough sweetness and enough of a mild apple raspberry flavor that most people with cold water, you're going to love it. But if you want to dominate it with a couple ounces of orange juice, it's going to take on that flavor. It's pretty simple in that regard. And then the protein has a little bit of a mild vanilla flavor.
Okay. So if somebody is really busy and they don't want to get out the blender and put things in there and blend up, adding, peanut butter or banana or whatever else, how mixable is it just with a spoon and a glass of water? Both of them.
Incredibly mixed. So I'm that person, right? For me, my meal prep is because when it's time to eat, I want it to go fast, unless I'm having something social with family. But breakfast and lunch for me are not leisure meals. I'm not going to take a lot of time there, busy life, lots of things I want to accomplish, not just that I need to accomplish, but I want to accomplish. And so I'm all about speed of preparation. And so I put a scoop of the greens and 2 scoops of the protein in a cup that's, I'm going to guess, Winder, it's about a 16-ounce cup, and put about 10 to 12 ounces of water in there. I've got a long spoon I use. We call them iced tea spoons here in the South. And I whirl it up for 20 seconds, and I drink it. Now, if you want yours to be less viscous, mine's not very viscous, but if you said to yourself, I want it to be thinner than that, no problem. Just use a little more water. Or if you want to be really creative, use a blender bottle type thing, right? With a little ball that'll spin inside. But it doesn't, you can blend this with a spoon. It's designed to do that. And guess what? We don't even have to use any artificial ingredients to cause that to occur. These are just native, natural plant goodness that mixes well. No soy, right? So that's not a problem either.
You're not drinking clumps.
You are not drinking clumps. I wouldn't serve you clumps. I use this stuff too. I'm anti-clump.
How many times a day could someone use that as a meal substitute if they were interested in, say, losing weight?
Well, good point. So we've actually got a transformation program that people will use, and we have a lot of fun with that. And so if you want to, for people trying to lose weight, right? If you're really interested, one thing that I've learned is that introduce at the starting point. Think of a sprint. Now, for most people that are trying to lose weight, there's a long-term approach they need to take. They're not heavy by accident. They're heavy by habit, right? And so it may take them a while to break those habits. But one of the things you can do, we have a transformation program where a person can actually replace 2 meals a day with the greens and the protein powder. Again, mix it with something if you want to. And you replace 2 meals a day, use your boost. I think that's pretty critical because those adaptogenic herbs in there and the caffeine will help you in between meals and help you with the energy level. And for the first 10 days, just sort of jumpstart stuff. In most people that I've worked with on this, in that first 10 days, they'll see anywhere from a 6 to as much as a 9 or a 10-pound change in body weight and clothes that fit better. And I'm not suggesting they continue to do that forever because they're going to get tired of that and it's very fatiguing. But that jump start can be super motivating. I mean, if you start and 10 days later, pants are slipping on a little easier, right? You're feeling better about it when you look in front of the mirror, then the energy you need and the willpower you need to make those longer term changes, that less ultra processed food, learning not to eat just because it's convenient, right? One of the things I spent a lot of time on airplanes, And I notice how often people eat and they're clearly not hungry. They just offered 2 bags of pretzel and a soft drink. And because it was free, somebody took it, right? So it takes a while to change some of those habits, right? So that jump start, though, can be just that energy and motivation you need to make that change. And so I do encourage people trying to change their habits. That's a good way to do it. And if you're going to do that with the new year that's coming up, start after Christmas or after Hanukkah, whatever makes sense. Start before the new year, so you've got the added excitement of having, gotten ahead of the curve, so to speak.
So if someone is really sensitive to caffeine, and the Boost can be somewhat energetic because of the caffeine in there, what would you suggest as a substitute?
And to be clear about that, so a serving of 3 capsules, not each capsule, but a serving of 3 capsules has approximately 130 milligrams of caffeine. And so if you're trying to draw a comparison, if you have a Mr. Coffee maker at home and you make drip coffee, most likely that's the equivalent of about 10 ounces of black drip coffee. That's probably, it could be 10 to 12, depending on how strong you make it, but that's about the equivalent of that much caffeine. So that's 3 capsules. So if that's too much for someone, we've got the Green Energy. Okay. It doesn't have the same jolt, but it does in terms of helping to improve energy level, because it helps to break apart those metabolized proteins that sort of clump around red blood cells. And so your oxygen processing improves. And so that's a great product to use in that regard.
Yeah, for me, if I had that much caffeine, I'd be Spider-Manning up the wall. And
there'd be a lot of winder.
It would be, for me, yes, that would be a lot. So the Green Energy probably would be a better shot. It's a wonderful product on its own.
Yeah.
So that's an easy fix there for that. But most people, if they drink a cup of coffee, they don't even notice, and so it's no big deal.
No, I mean, it's not the caffeine for me. I'll take Boost in the afternoon sometimes. Sometimes I'll have one in the morning. I think it's really the adaptogenic herbs that are doing more for me than the caffeine, because I drink coffee, and so that part doesn't really faze me.
Yeah, I'm more of a decaf sort of person, so it does me. Okay, so you have this easy to pull together super green juice and this protein. Now, some people, have you had anybody that, because when I've mentioned this to a couple of folks, there have been some issues, they say, with the pea protein. Have you heard anything about that, and how would you address that issue?
Well, are they talking about difficulty digesting pea protein?
Yeah.
So they need to try this when it's because of that mix of those fermented rices, because that seems to make all the difference in the world.
Okay, perfect.
That pre-digested mix is going to have an impact. The other thing, and this gets into the technical detail, so most pea proteins, they are either grown, harvested, and processed in Asia, or they're grown here and sent to Asia for processing. And the processing that they do, the way they handle the protein, can basically sort of harden that molecule, make it difficult to break that amino acid chain apart for digestion. Ours is harvested and processed here. And it so just doesn't seem to have that same reaction. I obviously can't know every detail of other companies' processes. And so but I know just in general, some of the dynamics, I think part of the difference is, doing it all here in the States yields you products a little easier to digest.
Excellent. Well, that's really encouraging. And anything else you'd like to add about these pretty spectacular offerings before we close for this day?
Yeah, and they are spectacular. So if you're an athlete looking for recovery and looking to build muscle, I want you to keep in mind that this is a full amino acid profile, right? So you do not have to go to a dairy or a meat source to get a full profile. Active moms or dad, which probably means they also need to be thinking about their cholesterol and other things. This is a clean way to have a meal and get the protein you need without having to rely on animal sources that potentially have animal fats and proteins. Remember, we don't get any cholesterol added to our diet from plant sources. The only thing that adds cholesterol to your diet are animal sources. Plants don't make it, right? So keep that in mind. A lot of people don't realize that. It's a vegan/vegetarian source, and so clean in that regard. Everything's USDA organic, certified. You got all the bells and whistles in that regard, and it's quick. And it can be good for growing kids, right? Oftentimes a person gives their child a Go-Gurt or one of these prepackaged little yogurt things. Problem is there's so much sugar that it's the equivalent of giving your child a candy bar. Mm-hmm. And so this is a clean way to eat and support your healthy lifestyle. I think it is as convenient a fashion as you can find.
If someone is wanting to use this and to substitute for a couple of meals a day, which would be the meals that you would recommend they substitute this?
Well, I think this is largely personal preference, but for me, I sleep better with a little something on my belly that's got a little weight to it. And so I would tend to replace breakfast and lunch because there's something socially satisfying for me to eat in the evening hours. And maybe it's just habit over the years. And it wouldn't necessarily bother me to have a shake in the evening hours, but my habit is to eat a meal in the evening hours. So that's probably the way I would do it, is to replace breakfast and lunch.
If someone wanted to do it like 3 times a day, and maybe mix of, like you suggested, peanut butter and a banana in with it just for a little oomph.
I probably wouldn't suggest that, because I think the act of chewing something has value psychologically. It's not that nutritionally, I don't think it couldn't be just fine, but I just think there's something to chewing a meal and at least once a day taking some time with that meal, that if you did that too frequently, you might miss that and crave it in such a way that's not healthy. And so the arc of what I want a person to do is to develop habits that become long-term, right?
So you don't have that rebound and weight gain that happens after a typical diet, quote unquote.
Yeah, we all have bad days, just don't make them a bad week.
Excellent. Anything else in closing?
No, sir. Look forward to seeing some folks with some results out there.
Eddie Stone, thank you, sir. A wonderful chat.
Thank you, Winder.
Bye, everyone.